let's get started. Today we have three leaders of breakaway congregations. Michael Johnson from Open Hearts and Minds, formerly Seven Principles Fellowship, apparently. Roy Dickinson from Hayward, and Niels Peterson from Salish Sea. And they're going to talk, we're going to talk a little bit about the experience of starting a new congregation, what we learned from it, and what takeaways we would like you to have. And so I'm going to start off by just asking everyone to introduce themselves, starting with Michael. And when you introduce yourself, maybe you can answer the question relatively briefly, because I know it's a big question. What prompted you to break away and form a new congregation? So go ahead, Michael.
I am Michael Johnson in Austin, Texas. I'm the president of the Open Hearts and Minds Fellowship. What prompted us was we were unable to get our board and our minister to listen to our concerns, and it became noxious and toxic, and people got tired of being called racist and all that kind of stuff. And so we resigned without any idea that we were going to form something else. That happened a little bit later.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Michael. Niels?
Thanks. I'm Nils Peterson. I'm president of the board of the Salish Sea Fellowship in Port Townsend, Washington. And my wife Joyce is also here in this session, and our fellow member Doug Rogers as well. So we've got three of us here. We broke away kind of for similar reasons. We had a very thriving adult education program at Quimper Unitarian in Port Townsend. And it came to the point where there were issues we were basically not allowed to discuss the eighth principle and the changing democracy in the UUA, let's say. And that became an issue. And we wanted to talk about these issues. We were denied access to the weekly newsletter. We were not allowed to generally email the membership. We formed an affinity group, which we figured out was perhaps the only group where we could have conversations around what was going on in the UUA. Otherwise, at QUF, these issues were siloed into different committees that were simply going along with what the UUA was saying. And so basically the board's answer was, well, it's in this committee, that's their job. You don't talk about that. So we started this affinity group. And basically when our developmental minister said that she was not interested in any form of reconciliation, that's when our affinity group turned into a group looking to start a new congregation.
Thank you, Niels. And Roy?
Yeah, hi, I'm Roy Dickerson. I'm here in Hayward, and actually the room you see behind me is where when we have in-house meetings, this is it. So it's not a big congregation. We actually have grown in the sense that we have people in all the way down in Mexico, Canada. Actually, Adele is from up in Winnipeg, and her husband Kurt. And Kent rather, and then Lorraine's up in Birch Bay, Washington. She joins us. We broke away. I guess I'd say what happened was I was on the board and got upset with the direction we were going. It was a matter of the oppressor victim mentality kind of took over, and I balked at that, and along the way the pulpit became someplace where only accepted speech could be said. We couldn't, we had really limited, and there was a rift grew. I went up to visit Todd up in Spokane, and I thought that he was being unfairly treated, and brought that back to the board, and a rift developed. So several of us started the Hayward Fellowship, and that's how we started.
Okay, thank you, everybody. I should also mention that we did have another session on UU Underworld, and I believe both Michael and Niels' stories are in the UU Underworld, and so you can read more about it. So my next question to the three of you, and we'll go in the same order. What did you gain by forming a new congregation? And also the flip side of that, what are you missing from your old congregation? So Michael, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, well, autonomy, of course. And there are about 20 of us, members and friends. And it's just a much more intimate experience than anything I had ever had in the church before, and I think there's general agreement about that for people who are are continuing with us. We know each other much better. We socialize with each other more often, so on and so forth. Um, we don't have a choir, and we don't have a building, and we don't have a minister, and on the other hand, we have a balanced budget. Um, and we are profoundly democratic. All important decisions go to everybody in the congregation. So and there, except for a couple of issues that are really more personality disputes than they are values or structural issues. We really haven't had much conflict, and we are coming up on being 5 years old.
And is there something you're missing from your old congregation?
Yeah, it's nice to have a building, right?
Okay.
We meet some off of Zoom, but most of it's on Zoom. But if this hadn't happened in 2020 when everything had to go onto Zoom anyway, I'm not sure this would have happened.
Thank you, Michael. Niels, would you like to go next?
Sure. Um, what did we gain? That's interesting because a lot of people talk about what we've lost. I think maybe in the same sense as Michael was saying, we've gained a level of intimacy. We're in a rented building. It's a Methodist church about 10, 12 miles south of where we used to be in Port Hadlock, Washington. And it's a smaller sanctuary. We are 69 members. We typically have somewhere in the mid 40s attend Sunday services. And it's a very comfortable space. It is more intimate. We can sort of all see each other and talk to each other easily. Quimper Unitarian, you might have 150 or more on a Sunday in one service, and that. So that's a different feel, and I think we've gained from that. A number of our members like that better, in fact. Um, in terms of what we'd lost, what I hear most is folks miss the building at Quimper Unitarian because many of us participated in actually building it. It's a little more than 10 years old, the new sanctuary, and we were out there putting the stucco on the walls, and my wife Joyce was up on the scaffolding painting the ceiling. And so it sort of tugs at us a bit, not being in that sanctuary that we actually built with our own hands.
Okay, thank you, Niels. And just to clarify, you rent a building twice a month, is that correct? Or is it
Uh,
more than that? For
well, so we
service?
have services twice a month, 2 Sundays a month, and we meet
Mhm.
in the afternoon. We decided to meet in the afternoon to avoid any direct conflict with Quimper Unitarian, which I think has been a benefit. But only twice a month. And the other Sundays, we have a potluck one Sunday, and we have a game day on the fourth Sunday. And we've been talking about doing other things on other days as well. Um, we'll see how that goes. The Sunday service is still the most popular item.
Thank you. Thank you, Niels. Roy, your turn.
Yeah, so I, honestly, I think what we've gained from it is much like you guys. We're small. We meet primarily now on Zoom. We started out having people come here and with the Zoom option, and now it's pretty much mostly on Zoom. Every so often somebody will show up here and we'll have a sort of a in-person thing. We have had like potlucks here and things like that as well. But mostly we meet on Wednesday afternoons. I think again, it's to avoid conflict. People still go to the old church. Not everybody. I don't, and we don't, but some people do. But what we've gained is we've gained people from outside the local area. Lorraine, Odell, for two, and I think it's been a real plus in that way. I mean, we're able to speak our minds. We get to know each other better. I mean, what I always liked about our old church was the coffee hour. That was the main thing, is getting to know people. Um, and and so, what we miss, I think what's really missed the is the loss of the way it used to be. I mean, I still have friends in the church, but I miss the old days, but I don't miss, what the way it's changed. So,
All right. Thank you,
And
Roy.
if if I
Yeah,
can double dip a
go
little
ahead,
bit,
Michael.
so we have two services a month, one Zoom, one in person now that's been going for about 2 years. And we have the budget to pay honorariums for ministers or other like folks for all of those. If the team leaders want to do that, then they do, I don't know, 80% of the time. And then we have a number of other kind of affinity groups. There's a movie group and a book group, and we have a meeting called Friday Fellowship, which is happens every Friday and gets 8 to 12 people. And we do business there if we need to do business. We do questions that are sometimes fun, sometimes searching and it's an opportunity for people to check in. So that's sort of the center post because it happens every week at the same time.
Okay. And Niels, I know you have some adult education programs. You want to talk about some other things you're doing?
Oh, sure. Joyce is going to get mad at me if I don't mention that, but we do have an adult education program that's fairly extensive, actually. And we do a session in the fall and a session in the spring, and it's online. Well, it's not offered online, I don't think, and Joyce can correct me. But you could go on our website and check it out if you want. I don't know how many offerings we have right now, but there's quite a few. And it's just different things. They could be activities like going birding, for example, or a trip somewhere. Or it can be actual classes like Joyce and I, starting Monday, we're doing 4 Mondays on the US Supreme Court together. Um, so it's sort of all over the place, whatever people are interested in and willing to offer to our community. And that's pretty successful. And we found, I'll just mention, um, with Grumpy Unitarian, Joyce for some years was running the adult education program there. That was an excellent way of bringing in new people from the community. It was advertised to the fellowship, but it was also advertised to the broader community if they wanted to attend these classes. And a lot of people came and connected with the community as a result of being introduced to it through those classes.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing some of these. This brings up a question. As you form this congregation, what are some of the challenges that you've found and how do you overcome them? And maybe I'll reverse the order and go with Roy first.
well, I think the number one thing is that we don't really have a traditional service like many people have, and like what we have is more of it's more like a circle, and I think it's more in line with, say, the Quaker model, or what I like to think of as the Ben Franklin's Junto model, where people get together and they're just to open up to ideas, and it's more democratic, more, I think it's more in line with my idea of what Unitarianism is all about. Is, you're moving yourself forward, searching at an individual level, and rather than depending on somebody telling you what they think. And so
Mhm.
we explore ideas, and I think that's that's the nature, but it isn't the normal mode, if you will, for churches, and the normal worship event. So I think that's something of a challenge, but it's also something of an advantage. So yeah.
Okay. And you do, although you don't have services, Hayward members are a very important part of the NAUA worship service. I should point that out. So you
Yeah.
help organize it. Niels, what key challenges did you find and how did you overcome them?
Well, when I think about it, what I was worried about was like, well, we want to hold services, so we need a place to do it, and we need somebody to actually hold a service. And so finding a space and getting speakers were the two biggest things up front. Interestingly, money was not the big issue. Once you don't own a building but are renting it, it actually got a lot cheaper to run a fellowship. Um, Fortunately, Ron Strange, who some of you may know, was put in charge of recruiting speakers and has done a great job. And I think he's already filled out our calendar through May uh, in 2026. So we're doing just fine on that front. The space was probably the most interesting part because Quimper Unitarian is in Port Townsend, Washington, where a number of us live. Port Hadlock, where we're meeting now, is 10 miles south. And I think that's helped sort of reduce any conflict between the two groups. We're not across the street or just down the street meeting, which was actually, we were looking at a space that was just up the street from Quimper and decided, well, maybe that's not the best idea to be that close and that directly confrontational. Um, but it took a while. There was one space in Port Townsend that did not want to rent to us because they'd had feedback from people who were from other members of Quimper and said, well, we don't want to get in the middle of this fight, so we're not going to let you meet here. And so we wound up in Port Hadlock, which, as I say, 10, 12 miles south of Port Townsend. And that's been a good thing. I mean, we've sort of connected a bit with a different community. So it was an opportunity we weren't looking for, I guess you could say. We've gotten some different people coming to us and connecting with different community groups as well that we're trying to support. So that's been good. Um, as I said before, people still do miss the old building, and there's a rumble that sort of keeps going on. It's like, gee, I miss that space, and could we go back to Port Townsend and meet there? Yeah. Uh, that rumbles along, and we'll see how that goes. But we're doing fine as we are, but it was a bit of a challenge finding a space. And I think getting going, the space and having regular program were the two key things. So we're meeting regularly and getting everybody used to showing up on these Sundays for a service.
Okay, thank you, Niels. Oh, we
Yeah.
will in a minute get to the question of what NAUA could do to help you, but let's go to Michael next.
Um, the challenges were mostly just work, right? I mean, we were not a very big group of people, and we had to figure out how to run complicated Zoom services that moved from one piece to another, from music to text to speakers, and ultimately pretty quickly actually needed to hire somebody to do that for us. And then as Nels was indicating, once we had the momentum, we had now two teams, one that does the Zoom services and one does the in-person services. And those folks work really hard, recruiting speakers and finding content and making sure that it's all pretty professionally done. Um, you know, we wrote bylaws, and we have had along the way to establish some procedures in terms of communication, so that people aren't selling their litter of puppies on the church email and that sort of thing. But the the one of the big ones is that there's nobody among us who's under 60, and there are almost half of us are over 80. And so there are only really about half of us who are energetic enough to really do a lot of it. So that, we have the real prospect that we will age out into something different from what we are now, because there's only, we're looking at another board election, and We pretty much asked everybody who can possibly serve if they will, and we have, a couple of people who are still able and willing, but at some point, that's just, we're gonna fizzle. We,
Mm.
we thought we could do recruiting and we thought we could do marketing and it just has netted almost nothing, so.
You'd be very
So,
interested to know, sorry, we'll get to Niels in a second, but in the other session, we had a discussion about how to attract the nuns. You might be interested in that, but go ahead, Niels.
Oh, I didn't have anything to
Oh,
add to
okay,
that. No,
okay.
sorry.
So hopefully there's some ideas in the other session to help you. Well, since we're talking about challenges, what would you have liked to have seen from the NAUA? What could the NAUA provide to help other congregations in your situation? I'll start with Michael this time.
a template, just an outline, remember to do this and remember to do this and remember, we just had to figure stuff out along the way. It didn't occur to anybody when we started out that we would need to buy liability insurance for the board, but of course you do, and you're doing something like this, and that we would have benefited by having a like-minded minister as a consultant, not so much for religious or spiritual issues, but just institutional, operational kinds of things. So that because we reinvented the wheel in some way.
Okay, so assistance in getting started up, like a checklist, something
Yeah.
like, and some ideas. Okay, and Niels, what would you
Well,
have?
yeah, I kind of agree with Michael. In particular, somebody to call upon to just talk about, well, okay, we want to do pastoral care for our community. How do you do that? I mean, what's the best way? Just the little nuts and bolts of it? I mean, we can do it, obviously, but obviously somebody who has been doing it will know better how you accomplish this and how you set it up and how you make sure you don't, lose people along the way, for example. So things like that. If we had a former minister or current minister even who could serve as a mentor or just somebody to send a question to once in a while, that would be great. A lot of the other things, kind of like Michael, we just kind of figured it out. We were fortunate to have a lot of people who had previous experience in church governance, so a lot of these more ordinary things we were aware of, but some of them were not. So,
Great. And I know Judy Durham is on the listening to these suggestions because member services has talked about
mm.
creating some services. Roy, what would you have liked to see?
Well, we're pretty low key in the sense we're not real formal, we're informal. So we aren't, we've established, but we don't have anything really formal in regards to things being written down. We're not a nonprofit, for instance. And if I suppose if we were to grow, that's something that we probably need help with. But on the flip side, we're I think we've been carrying on in a fine fashion. So I don't think it's terrible. Uh, but we probably could use some help along those lines. And and then on a probably on a more practical note for us, uh, if we had better visibility, so maybe on the NAUA website, if there was like a reference to us and say, hey, this is how you get in contact with us. And I don't think that's there for any of us. Am I wrong with that? Or you guys, I'm not aware of anything being posted on the NAUA website about your congregations. Is that right?
This is Lincoln. I'll jump in and say, to my knowledge, there is not. And it's actually something that came up in a previous session, and I've got it on my little back of my mind to bring up with the communications team. I think we do need a page that basically says member congregations and directs people to them with some contact information, maybe a little bit like the NA that the UUA's Find a Congregation website, although certainly not as fancy. It'd have to be a lot simpler because we're not a whole lot, we don't have a whole lot of people helping us with the website. So it
Sure.
has to be pretty simple. But
Thank-
yeah, we
thank
could
you,
definitely
Lincoln.
use that.
Thank you,
I'm
Lincoln.
gonna
Lincoln is our technical support and he manages the website among other things. So that's great.
I'm gonna have to bow out for just a few minutes anyway. My wife needs some help, so I'll
Oh,
be
all
right
right.
back with you.
Sorry
Okay.
to hear
Yeah.
that, Roy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through a couple more questions and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions and comments. There have been some really good comments in the comment section. So what I'd like to know is what are the factors and why do you think you've been successful so far? I'll start with Niels. What made you successful?
Well, that's a good question. Sometimes I'm not sure. I think we had a sufficient number of people who were interested in doing this. You know, as I talked about before, the Tomato Soup Group, which was the name of our affinity group, um, thanks to Rod Strange and Judy King, um, we started off meeting way before we ever thought about splitting away. And so there was a core group who were already connected and possibly interested in doing this. So there was an ongoing discussion for years, really. And when we finally decided to do it, we sort of automatically had numbers, I guess I should say, 20 to 30 people who were definitely interested in this, and at least somewhere in the teens, people willing to actually work toward making it happen. And that's sort of, we decided, well, that's enough to get a start. Um, so I think that's the main thing. Also, finances have not been an issue, and I know they can be in a lot of places, because the members who are with us are generous and have been committed. So we haven't had to worry about the budget too much. And that's just great because usually that can put the kibosh in a lot of things that people don't actually contribute. So um, that's been great. I think it was really important to get regular programming going. You know, we said we're going to start on this day, and from that date, we keep in touch with people and we've kept the regularity of the programming going so folks can count on it. That's helped a lot. There was no like big gap where we redid something, nothing like that. So, um, that being said, I feel like our membership has sort of leveled off, our attendance has kind of leveled off. And, thinking about these things, I just start to get nervous. It's like, okay, have we peaked and are we slowly just going to age out? Maybe that's going to happen. How do we attract more people? How do we get more people in our community to realize that we're here and that there's something we offer to at least a certain percentage of them? I know there is a certain percentage that would be interested. How do you get those people in the door to realize, oh, this is a nice place. I'd like to be here.
Great news. I just want to mention Alex Holt, who's a minister, was on our other call, and I talked to him about his visit to you, and he said your congregation was doing great. He was
Yeah,
very positive about
yeah,
you.
yeah. It was a very nice sermon he did. Thank you.
Okay, and Michael, why do you think you've been successful?
We began as a core of 9 people. I just looked at the letter we wrote to the board, who were really committed to holding on to UU values, to the principles, and who were in the end pretty angry. And then that's what led to our it wasn't a group resignation, but we all resigned within a week or two of each other. And we started meeting in this Friday meeting to take care of each other, to process our feelings with no particular idea that we were going to do anything else later on. And I think that we became a family of sorts in that, right? That we became much closer. And then I don't know how many weeks or months down the road, somebody said, "Hey kids, let's make a church." And so there was this energy that had been turned against the old church that got turned into, we can do better for ourselves than they did for us, and by God, let's do it. And and commitment and resources were there, and there were, I'm a former board member. There was a former board president among us. There was at least 2 other former board members among us. So we knew people who sort of knew how to stir the ship. And then, we keep adding new stuff, right? So we have, one of our members came up with the idea that we ought to have a day celebrating the signing of the Constitution. So we have Interdependence Day, which is, we started out doing it in September, and in Austin, that's just a terrible idea. So now it's in October, but, um, so it works. Right? People care about it and it works, and at least the core people keep coming back.
Okay, thank you. And I think the fact that you have people with experience in congregations before is a very, very important factor. I think that's true for you too, Niels, that you have a
Yeah,
lot of people with previous experience.
yeah, definitely.
Roy, your thoughts on why you've been successful?
Well, I think, I think we have a small group of people and they're dispersed. So, and I think Zoom has been very helpful in that regards. Uh, but I think that the idea that, each of us gets to express our ideas, I think is really the most important thing. I mean, I think that's what drove us away from the our the church in the first place, the congregation we were in. At the same time, I think we managed to hold ties to the people in that church, and I think we want to maintain those ties. Uh, I mean, it's community, right? I mean, that's what it's all about is the community. And so we want to provide a place for people to express themselves and to be comfortable. And hopefully we're not hopefully we're not driving too big a wedge between the people that we still care about in the old congregation. And I think we're doing that. So, yeah.
Thank you. Actually, Danny, who's part of your old congregation, is listening to you. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
okay. Lastly, and then I'll open it up for general discussion. But what key takeaways would you like your audience to know? And I'm going to start with Niels.
Okay.
What would you like your audience to?
I think well, I think it was helpful for us, and I think Michael alluded to this as well, that we had this affinity group going on as technically part of Quimper Unitarian for quite a while before we decided to form the new congregation. Um, that was the venue for venting a lot of our grievances to each other if and occasionally board members would attend, and so they would get to hear it as well. And I guess when we did start to look at forming a new congregation, while there was still a lot of anger and grievance and hurt there, I think it's really important to try to put that behind you and create a positive vision for this new thing you're creating. And so not base it on anger or, those people over there screwed us or whatever. Um, and to create something separate, something new, something that has nothing to do with what was going on in the past. What do you want out of your community, in other words, and try to leave that behind, the grievances behind.
Thank you. Thank you, Niels. Michael, thoughts that you'd like to leave people with?
I'm mostly going to echo what Nell said. A, a group of people who care about having a spiritual community that's healthy and nourishing, and who care about each other, and who are willing to put in the time and work is really all that it takes. But it takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
Right. The first couple years, we worked, pretty hard putting things together, and now some of that's solved, and so we can have more fun and be more relaxed. But it's you just have to start. Just when Lewis and Clark started, they just got in a boat and started down the river, and they got there, most of them.
Right, thank you. And Roy, you have any last thoughts you'd like your audience to hear?
Well, I think the idea of having this community is the main thing. I think I agree with, especially with what you guys have said, put aside the past anger. I think we've had time to let the anger portion settle a bit and move on and figure out what we're going to do to make the world a better place and to enjoy ourselves. Yeah, I mean, I think we want to have a good community that does some good and get something out of it for ourselves. Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. And I'm going to open it up for questions.
If I can
Go
add,
ahead, Michael.
we spend about a third of our budget on philanthropy. So last year we gave
Great.
away $8,500.
Wow.
And that really anchors us to the mission of helping serve the greater world.
So be positive, think about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
They're both great ideas. And I think you said the last time I asked you this question, Michael, you said it can be done. And that's a good
Apparently.
that's a good message to leave
Yeah.
people with. Okay, so I'm going to open it up. I just want to remind people that if you want to ask a question, I did see one hand up. You can leave it up, that's fine. Please press the react button at the bottom of the screen, and then I will call on you. And I'm going to start with Thomas, who already has his hand raised. So go ahead, Thomas.
You need to unmute, Thomas.
You need to unmute.
How about that? So first of all, I want to thank the presenters, because I think this has been a great window into the realities of starting a congregation in a denomination that's already established. When I talk with people about the NAUA, which I've tried to do a few times, and I have to say not too successfully, they always ask me a couple things. Do you have congregations? And how many congregations do you have? So I would like to know how many congregations have affiliated with the NAUA. Much of the strategic plan seems to be about broadening both membership and growing other groups. And as a member, I don't know how I'll be able to judge what's done if I don't know where we stand now.
So I do notice that both Lincoln and Judy are on the call. I don't know if either of you can answer the question of how many congregations we have affiliated. Just raise your hand if you can, and I'll. Lincoln, go ahead.
This is Lincoln. I don't remember doing a count, but I recall talk of there being probably less than 10, 8 to 10 congregations that have affiliated with us, at least from the point of view of saying they want to be a member. That doesn't mean that they've disaffiliated from the UUA. And Judy has her hand up, and she probably has a better answer than I do. So I will defer to Judy.
Go ahead, Judy.
I don't know that it's a much better answer. I heard within the past couple days that there were roughly 10 fellowships or congregations. And I know for sure that one of them has disaffiliated with UUA, and whether or not there's more that have disaffiliated from UUA, I have no idea.
Well, that's what we know right now. And Lincoln said he's going to work on putting the connection on the website. So hopefully we'll get a better idea. So I'm going to go to Lorraine. I'm just going to spotlight Lorraine here, and I'm learning how to do all of this. And you can unmute yourself, Lorraine.
I think I did. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine.
Okay. Well, I'm hanging out here because we don't about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, I started talking to Bob Simone and a couple other people about how I could find other NAUA people in my area up here north of Seattle. And so when Judy Durham posted the piece in the Compass about starting regional groups, I really jumped on that and so volunteered to lead a regional group in my area. And my area covers basically from Olympia up to North Vancouver, over to the west side of Vancouver Island. It includes Port Townsend, which, as the crow flies, is not far. But to get there, you have to drive an hour and jump on a ferry and drive a half hour. And so it's a pretty dispersed area. I had about 100 people on my email list. And at our first meeting, I think we had about 21 people. I can't remember for sure. The second meeting, we had 12. We had our third meeting this last week, and we had 4 people show up, and 2 of them were hosts. So I don't know exactly how that's going to play out. I suspect that it will devolve into much smaller regional groups like the Seattle area, Vancouver area. I'm up in Bellingham, Birch Bay. We have 3 NAUA members up here. And probably that's what's going to happen with the larger group sort of disappearing. But we'll see. I really would love to have a local congregation. We have a big UUA church in Bellingham and a very small fellowship in Blaine, both of which pretty much follow the party line and don't serve my needs for sure. So I'm here to sort of get prepared. So if an opportunity comes up, and we have 9 people interested in a fellowship, I know what to do and how to get it started. And so what would be really, really helpful, because I'm not a minister. I served on the board of my old church, but I don't even remember too much about it. That was 15 years ago. It'd be wonderful to have a handbook on how to get started, and that would include, who to contact for guidance and help, if there are any legal issues you need to think about, and if so, at what point do you need to think about them? It would also be wonderful to have resources for lay-led services. I was trained in the old days of leading covenant groups, so I have like some resources, but they're not really the best kind of resource for a congregation. So I just wanted to toss that out there and think, if these congregations are going to form, um, a lot of them are going to be formed by people like me who have no idea what we're doing. So it would be wonderful to have some guidance to turn to at the NAUA. The other thing, um, everybody is concerned with growth, and in order to have a congregation, you really do have to have a critical mass of people within a driving area, where they can, within an hour of each other, something like that.
So Lorraine, you've had a number of questions and I'd like to give people a chance to respond to a couple of those. I see Judy is definitely going to respond. I also want to mention we did have another session on what NAUA can help you, and that does address some of those issues too. But go ahead, Judy. You can.
Yep,
sorry.
I just did. So one of the things that the Member Services Committee has been trying to do for a number of months, and this is again because the Member Services Committee is small, the Communications Committee is small, basically is Joyce trying to, Joanne trying to run the show. And as a result of that, the Member Services Committee website, which we have been trying to get up for a couple of months now, is still not up. And there are going to be some resources on that website. For instance, a couple months ago, Nils did a summary of what he went through relative to beginning and setting up Salish fellowship, and that is going to be on the website. Joyce put together a little PowerPoint of the advantages of joining NAUA. That's going to be on the website. Actually, after the summit's over, I was going to ask the folks who have done this workshop as well as the previous workshop, if we can put the video of these two workshops up on the website so that there will be more support services for fellowships that are looking, so how do we do it? This is how they did it. Maybe we can take something from how other people have done it. In terms of what's happening with your regional group, I'm not surprised. I think our hope is that some of the people who end up being more local can join and make an in-person group. I couldn't imagine that your group would have stayed, together given the geographic area that you cover. So maybe there's a way that you can sort of assist the group in forming some, more connections that are more feasible to actually do in person.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to mention something to make a plea. Judy's committee is trying to do a lot with very few people, so I know that she would appreciate having some help. That's very important work. But
Thank you.
Roy and Michael have their hands up, so I'll go to Michael first. Go ahead, Michael.
So these are not necessarily related to the other ideas. It seems to me that since at least some of these nascent congregations or fellowships are at least partly on Zoom, if there could be a menu on the NUAA website that indicates how and when and what the links are, that would serve everybody. And I was just reading the chat. We tried advertising with our local public radio station for a year at a substantial expense, and it got us nothing. We occasionally get a hit on our website. We have a plan to do search engine optimization on that, along with some other things, and hopefully that will glean some other stuff. And we are now, when you Google congregations in Austin, we show up as one. I'm not sure how that happened, and I'm not sure we've gotten any traction from it, but I think that's just slow going. So.
And Joyce has had a lot of comments, and now she has her hands up, so I'm going to ask her to unmute and say what she wants to say. I'll try to spotlight you, Joyce.
I just
Go ahead.
wanted to say that I did create this little video to say to our congregation, because we're about to vote on whether we as a congregation want to join the NAUA as a congregation. There's probably 10 of us that already joined individually, but it's a question. And I have to say, a lot of our members are sort of still reeling from having left the UUA and are resistant to the idea of anybody else joining anybody else. So I was trying to introduce who is the NAUA. We don't, most of our congregation doesn't pay much attention because we have a congregation and we meet regularly. So it's a question. But if we can be of assistance, because we maybe are one of the bigger ones, we would certainly like to be. So I put my email in the chat, and if you want that video, I'll send it to you. And also I can put you in contact, or I can send the the origin story from Michael and the origin story from Nils about our individual congregations, those are useful. And if you don't know how to dig them out, I'll happily send them to you. So I think those are
One thing we
helpful.
can do, Joyce, is we can attach them to the workout session, the workshop session. And so if you send them to me, I can make sure they get done, and then anybody who's registered for the conference can access them.
Oh, good. Okay. And then I would also say we have some wonderful speakers who have come through. We're lucky. We have a wonderful speaker who speaks once a month. And we have a lot of really good speakers that have come out of our own congregation. And we had a workshop from that super speaker who gave a workshop on how to do a sermon. And I can share his handouts from that. And it was very helpful. I took his workshop before I did a sermon, and I think he helped me a lot. So all of our sermons are online. And if you all want to do home fellowship and show those sermons, go for it. We should share one another's resources.
Joyce, what I'll do is I will email you. I see joyce.francis@pt.
.pt@gmail.com.
And then I'll get those from you and I'll have them posted so that anybody can.
Excellent. We should share resources here.
And we'll go on a couple of minutes as long as people are willing to stay. Michael, no, I'm sorry, Roy, did I give you a chance to talk?
Not yet. I just wanted to touch base with what Lorraine said. She, here in Northern California, I think I looked at the list. I think we have like maybe 25 people from, Northern California, and I mean, I think the key for regional groups is, that are so widely separated, is to try to have once in a while a get together, but have a Zoom meeting. And I honestly think that I think our circles and our when we get together in whatever form, I think it's community, and I think that's really positive. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay, and Michael.
That was inadvertent. I didn't have my hand up.
Oh, okay. All right. So I've got Joyce's email, and I also know how to contact Niels if I can't reach Joyce. So one way or another, I'll get those resources from you. We are out of time, so thank you everybody for joining. It was a great discussion. Hopefully we learned a lot from this session as well as the last one. Both of them will be recorded. Thank you very much, everybody, and thank you especially for Michael, Niels, and Roy for spending time with us.
Thank
Okay,
you for
Thank
moderating.
you.
Yeah, thanks.
okay,
Lou.
I'm gonna leave now. Thanks.
Good night, all.
Good
All right.
night.
Good night.